When you realize what the Torah is worth, then of course you can always open another daf of Gemara and learn it as if it's the first time you're learning it.
Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rebbe Saf Aron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom Uvracha. In this week's Parshas Terumah, I saw two very cute votes that it was very hard for me to decide which one to say. However, siyata dishmaya, I realized that they actually complement one another. The first vote is a Chasam Sofer. Chasam Sofer brings the following question b'shem his Rebbe, Rav Nosson Adler. And he says, we all know that the Kruvim that were on the Aron, part of the Aron, where the Sefer Torah was there, they represent Talmid Chacham. And the question he asks is, why are their faces like a baby face? You would think it's more appropriate for him to be a face of an elderly person with a long white or gray beard and not just a baby face. Especially we know Zaken is notrikon. It hints to the idea Ze kana chokhmah, meaning someone old usually is a person that is learned. Also Chazal tell us that you might as well learn from someone old that retains the Torah as opposed to someone young, and it compares it to drinking wine that just became wine, which is fresh wine, doesn't taste as good, as opposed to drinking yain that has aged. And he answers a very, very fundamental idea. And he says, you know why they reached to become Talmid Chachamim? Talmid Chachamim is someone that always goes into the learning as if it's the first time they saw it. They have such zeskeit. They get really into it, emotionally, wow. They appreciate it. And hence, everything they learn, whatever it is, it's like a baby when he learns something the first time. First time a kid says, Ma nishtana, and Leila Seder, you see, that in itself gives him the koichos and the energy to stay up all night. The first time a kid learns Chumash with Rashi, the first time a kid learns the blood of Gemara, wow, he gets so into it. A Talmid Chacham realizes what the Torah is all about, and hence he gets so much into it also. And that is what allowed him to get to such a point. Also, one can add to that there's a certain healthy naiveness that you're willing to accept whatever you see, and you don't come with preconceptions of what you're learning, but rather you learn what the Torah is telling you, and through that, you gain a lot. That's why also, we don't see that Talmidei Chachamim are called Chachamim. They're called Talmidei Chachamim, because they're always thirsty to learn more. They're always viewing things as if this is the first time I'm looking into it. Usually, when a person gets older, it becomes more mundane. He's already used to it. He doesn't get all excited. However, a Talmid Chacham is someone that possesses a childlike exuberance to learn Torah. To summarize, the way to become a Talmid Chacham is to make sure that our learning always maintains the symbolism of what the Kruvim represent, which is a Talmid Chacham that from a certain perspective is like a baby, eager to learn for the first time. Ad kana kafa achas. And that's the short vort number one. However, the big question is, how do you reach that point? How do you become so into learning? What's going to make it geschmack? How are you going to always view the Torah? This is like the first time I'm learning. What gets us to get to that point? And with that, I want to share with you another short vote. And that is, based on the Midrash Rabbah, the first Midrash Rabbah in our Parsha, it says that when a person in our Parsha, it speaks out that people volunteered all kinds of gifts for the Mishkan. And it says gold and silver and other stuff, zahav v'chesef. The first Midrash Rabbah says, you should know, that my Torah is the best acquisition a person could have. Ki lekach tov natati lachem, and don't ever leave this acquisition, the Torah. Al tazovu. And he explains that there's some acquisitions that a person prefers to get gold, and some prefer to get silver. However, the Torah has both. Now, Avisacha Fran asked the obvious question. What do you mean? Everyone knows gold is better than silver. So why is the Midrash saying that the Torah is also like gold and also like silver? Usually when you make an acquisition, you get one thing, it can be A or B. Can't be both, but the Torah has both. Why is it using gold and silver to symbolize this? Hare gold and silver, gold is way better. So why would anyone want silver? Another question I want to raise is a lot of times we see in Tehillim and other places, Shlomo HaMelech is referencing the Torah that it's good like gold and silver. On the other hand, a lot of times we see the Torah as references as a song, as a shira. How do these things work together? How do they sing together? So I saw B'Shem Rav Shmuel Rozovsky, a Mordecai idea. And he says that's one of the beautiful things about Torah. Torah, on the one hand, represents infinite wisdom, really deep, and that's represented by the gold. On the other hand, money, silver, which used to be silver coins, that portrays the idea of being very accessible. And be'emet, when you look at the Mefarshim of this Midrash, they explain that all kinds of mahachim about what the silver represents and the gold, because obviously they had our question. If you have gold, why do you need silver? And there's different mahachim all along these lines. Either the silver represents the simple pshat of the Torah, and the gold represents the pnimius of the Torah, or the silver represents the halacha, and the gold represents the more deeper understanding, but they're all the same idea. The Torah is accessible to all. You have also the gold, something really deep that older people can connect to, that are already learned. And you also have the silver, there are aspects of the Torah that are very accessible to anyone, to any age. For example, this is Parshas Terumah. A kid comes from Cheder, the age of 6, gets all excited. He shows you a picture of how the Mishkan was created, what it looks like, whereas someone else can be learning the depths of the hidden messages of how everything was built in the Mishkan. Now we can also understand why the Torah is referenced as a shira, as a song, because music is also very unique from a certain perspective like Torah. Like Torah can be learned on different levels, and hence it can be accessible to everyone, and everyone can connect there either on a level of gold or silver, if you will. So too music is one of the rare things out there that an older person that's very sophisticated in music can understand every nuance in the melody and the different instruments playing in the background. So to a little kid, he feels like he can connect to the music on his level. And hence it's very fitting that the Torah is also represented as shira, as a song, as a melody, which actually strengthens the idea why the Torah is like also gold and silver. Wow, that's unbelievable. Something very unique about the Torah that everyone can connect to on a different level. This is a heichi timsi of showing us what the Torah is worth. When you realize what the Torah is worth, then of course you can always open another daf of Gemara and learn it as if it's the first time you're learning it. Because you appreciate what it is. When you appreciate how important something is, and also when you appreciate what you're accomplishing by learning it, of course you're going to be motivated and going to get into it and become a Talmid Chacham. I remember once I went to a set of shiurim, I've mentioned this many times, Harav Boyer, and in that shiur, once he asked, what's going to be the biggest surprise to us in Olam Haba? What's going to be revealed to us that perhaps during this world we didn't notice? And that is everything we learn, every mitzvah we do, wow, we're going to see what a crazy, extreme ripple effect it had in all the worlds above us, including our world here, Olam HaAsiyah. We're not going to believe it. If we only would have that recollection and realize that's what's happening right now in this world, that would give us so much more motivation to learn with the zeskeit and be called a Talmid Chacham and reach that level. And hence, what I want to take out of the second vault is number one, to realize what an acquisition we have, the Torah. But it's not only the Torah, it's all of Yiddishkeit. We're so lucky. I just heard the other day one of the hostages that came back. I don't remember his name now, but the ones that looked really, really skinny. He said, and they say mentally he was healthier than the others. He said, what kept me going was the emunah, believing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. He said, and he's not a religious person. You see, he's a bit traditional, but he said he made kiddush on water, he said, and he said that even let him daven, and that's what helped him giving the koichos to continue. And he said, Am Yisrael is strong, and that's because we're all connected through our emunah, through the Torah, through our emunah, and that's what gives us the koich to be united and to be connected to Hashem. Like Chazal tell us, the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Israel are all one. Anything we do that's not like that demarcates us and divides us. But when the core is Torah, the core is believing in the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all neshamas are connected, and hence we have no barrier. And that's what gave him the koyach. And so too here, if we realize what the Torah is, then we're going to get all excited about it. And that's true about every mitzvah. One can extrapolate that to everything. And that's what we have to make sure that's clear in our minds. That's how we can get to a level of a Talmid Chacham in life. Before I end off with a story, I do think it's important to mention that a person should always have a balance in his Yiddishkeit. What I mean, a person can ask himself, I daven every day. Am I davening well enough? Should I be doing better? So of course the answer is there's always room for improvement, but it's never too much or too little. The danger, I think, comes when a person becomes overly self-critical and always saying, it's not good enough. I should be more. In short, based on Chazal's a person should understand that even though he does a lot, it's never too much. You can always grow spiritually. However, a person should also realize that a little is never too little. Everything you're doing, even though it's silver, not gold, it's still silver. And you're gaining a lot. We should acknowledge our self-worth. Mere fact, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Torah and we can learn it. You daven every day, whatever you do. Even the Gaon Mevilna says that a person who is rich, Ezu Hashira Samech Bechalkol, that's healthy, that's happy with what he has. You're considered rich. So, and he said that's even not only in Gashmias, not only in Gashmias, also in Ruchnias, in spirituality. A person should be proud of what he has. However, that shouldn't stop him from aspiring to more. And with that, I want to end off with a story, a personal story that I experienced that I think brings everything together and screams out this idea that the Torah is also gold and also silver. This goes back to the days when I used to live in Ra'anana, when our oldest son, who is now 21 years old, was a baby. And I went with a good friend at the time, Mark Elim. He now lives in South Africa. And we decided we want to have an elevated Shabbos and let's go away together to the Vishnitz Hotel in Bnei Brak. Everything was planned out. We said at night, we're going to the Vishnitz Tish, and we'll also daven Rav Chaim Kanievsky before at night, Friday night. And in the morning, we went to Nates to daven at Rav Chaim. But the one thing that I want to share with you is the following. Like many yeshiva bachurim at the time, with more chutzpah than sense, had this burning desire that was very important for me to daven Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Every time I had an opportunity, I went. And this was a special opportunity because he wasn't feeling so well. So the minyan was a very mitzumtza minyan, only a couple of people, 10, 15 people in his home. Anyone who has tried to do such a thing and daven with him in his home, it's not just a matter of walking in, getting past the gabbai, required what I can only describe as psychological warfare. But Baruch Hashem, after some persistence, pleading, and perhaps a bit of what my mother would call creative persuasion, I somehow convinced the gabbai to let me join the minyan. Together with my friend Mark Elim, we arrived early, excited, but a bit nervous, of course. Every time you go to a gadol, we expected to find the room packed with Talmid Chacham getting ready for Kabbalah's Shabbos. Instead, we discovered something totally different. I didn't know that the minyan actually starts on Friday night with Ma'ariv. Maybe people daven Kabbalah's Shabbos on their own or at a different place. So there we were, only us and Rav Chaim Kanievsky. However, waiting awkwardly, we noticed that Rav Chaim Kanievsky himself was sitting in this small mirpeset that he has, the small porch attached to his study, which was their sukkah during Sukkot. And what I saw next stayed with me for decades. The Gadol Ador, whose mind, as we know, contained the entire Torah. He wasn't learning alone. He was learning with his great-grandson, a small boy, no more than 7 or 8 years old. That's what struck me wasn't simply that he was learning with a child. I assumed that many grandfathers do this. It was how he was doing it. Rav Chaim, who could navigate the most complex sugyas in Shas, was completely immersed with his child. He wasn't simply tolerating the boy's question. He somehow connected to the child, precisely on his level. His entire being, the same mind that could recall every Tosfos, every Rambam, every Yerushalmi, every Midrash Rabbah, every Zohar, was fully engaged with simple chumash with his great-grandchild. I watched that as the boy was struggling, even with the Rashi. Instead of simply explaining it to him, Reb Chaim gently asked questions, his eyes lighting up with what appeared to be genuine curiosity, as if he himself was discovering this Rashi for the first time. When the boy finally understood, you could see Reb Chaim's face lit up. What struck me the most was that Reb Chaim wasn't downgrading the Torah. He was revealing its accessibility at every level. He was demonstrating this idea that the Torah is gold and silver, and everyone can connect it. In fact, we can connect to each other through that. The Gabbai finally called everyone for Ma'ariv, and the moment was gone. But that image, the great Reb Chaim, one of the biggest sages of our generation, sitting with his great-grandson, both of them hunched over the same sefer and the same shtender. Both faces screamed out the joy of discovery. Both, that image, redefined for me what it means to truly be connected to Torah. Years later, when people ask me what made Rav Chaim Kanievsky so special, I don't start with all the stories that everyone says, the phenomenal kiyus he has, wow, the hasmada. I tell them about that Friday evening, when Ansai make himself small enough to learn with a child, whilst obviously he remained the gadol he was. In those moments in my mind, I was thinking to myself, Torah isn't just reaching the heights of complexity, but also being able to find its depths at every level, interconnected in many ways. And I will end with this idea that gold and silver, it's not just for him it's gold and for me it's silver. But on my own way of learning, I can have gold and silver. And that's another Heichi Timtzit that can help us rejuvenate our emotions and getting excited about learning. Because once we can learn Chumash with Rashi, once with Ramban, once Gemara with a Baal HaMaor, V'yiratzon, that we will use these tactics to ensure that we will be like those Kruvim with a baby face and connect to the Torah, not only through Zahav and gold, but also through silver. Have a good Shabbos.
This concludes another episode of the Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on the Prism of Torah.